Well, as 100,000 people descend upon downtown Nashville for the CMA Fest, the conversation about what is happening in the Airbnb market couldn't be more relevant. In fact, if you looked, you would think that an Airbnb would be a genius investment, except for there's no greater crash happening in real estate in Tennessee than Airbnbs. Now, in this video, I'm going to explain what is happening in the Airbnb market because it is not a demand for overnight stays. In fact, the tourism industry has never been better than it is this year, but it's not growing like it was in 21 and 22. And yet we are seeing Airbnbs drop some 50% or more. I highlighted this Airbnb in North Nashville last week, dropped the price another $35,000. They're at $400,000 for this Airbnb. It was purchased in 2022 for $910,000. And most Airbnbs can't even sell right now. Now, this comes as Nashville housing just hit an all-time high in median sales price. So let's just take a look at what's happening in the Nashville housing market. Then we're going to dial in to Airbnbs because, believe it or not, there's almost a 2-year supply of active listings that are Airbnbs, but even more off market. In this video, I'm going to share that with you. But let's take a look at Nashville housing really quick. It's crazy to me that the median sales price is going to hit a new all-time high somewhere around $530,000 is where the Greater Nashville Realtors will report on Monday. The median sales price, $530,000. I've got $533 right now. This is an all-time high. It's very important that you realize this is buyers on the higher end buying while the lower end continue to stall out. And I can prove it. Let's look at a few price bands. One that caught my attention this week was in Williamson County in the $500 to $750 price range. Contracts down almost 20%. There are certain price bands that are getting squeezed. And Williamson's interesting because the $500 to $750 is very entry level. People are starting to choose Wilson or Sumner for this price band. And that's why you can see in Wilson, demand is up 53%. Sumner, demand is up 15%. The people that aren't purchasing in Williamson are actually moving to a less expensive county in this price band. What we are seeing is a K-shaped housing market in the Nashville, Tennessee area. You go above 1 million and we're talking double-digit increase in demand. A double-digit increase in demand, even though, we're on the other side of May and demand is starting to drop. We're going to see some spurts of demand between now and July as people land in their schools, the school zone scurry, the panic buying, getting into that school zone. And then after that, buying season really starts, and it's already been a soft year. It could get really, really good on the other side, July and August. If you are a buyer, that's where it gets really soft. But also the selection may not be quite as good as it is right now. But let's now zoom in on the Davidson County Airbnb. Airbnb's market now has 23 listings for every buyer. This is essentially a 2-year supply of listings. You can't just search Airbnb in the MLS and get this information. Just keep that in mind. The methodology here is for NOOSTR in the remarks. And when we zoom in on that, though, we're going to find some just absolutely fascinating things. For one, supply has skyrocketed where there was virtually none in February of 2022. I'm talking like 2 or 3 listings total. We're now at 186. We peaked at 186. We'll see if this continues to rise. Last June, we had 203. That was a record. Are we going to get 203 or more this June? We'll see. Some of the tax laws changed and people love buying money, losing Airbnbs to write it off on their taxes. I had somebody explain the tax strategy on my comments last week, and it still doesn't make sense to me. Now, it's really important that you realize this is a supply-driven crash, okay? Supply has exploded. We have a 50% increase in hotel rooms in Nashville in the past decade, 20,000 100,000 rooms have been delivered into Nashville. And so it's really important that you realize that the demand for Airbnbs and hotels has never been higher in Nashville. If we normalize with last year's data for the remaining 3 months, or really 2 months, I guess, May and June, what we see is we're actually projected to hit an all-time high in tax revenue for hotel stays in Tennessee. It's interesting that both Sevierville and Davidson County are seeing an Airbnb crash when we have just as much demand, if not more demand, as the tax revenue comes in. The amount of Airbnbs available for sale that have been built has created this bubble. It is a bubble, it's a micro bubble, and it is bursting. And so we're seeing drops, I think 50 to 75%. I'm not exaggerating. I try to be even keeled on this channel and just give you the information so you can make the best decisions. And so when I tell you that Airbnbs are crashing 50 to 75%, truly is a bubble. And yet there are still people buying at premium prices. Trying to learn the Airbnb business by buying an Airbnb in Nashville is a horrible idea, even if you can write off your CMA Fest trip. I'm just telling you, this is not for amateurs. This is not an amateur business. This is a real business. It is a hard business. It is a business where really good operators will make a lot of money and everybody else will lose. It's like the restaurant business. It is not for amateurs. I need you to hear me say that. Demand is not dropping. This is a supply and competition story. In 22 and 23, only 1.5% of listings in Davidson County were listed as Airbnbs. Today, that number is almost 5%. Almost 1 in 20 listings are non-owner occupied Airbnbs. Even as Davidson County inventories exploded, the Airbnb inventory has exploded even more. A third of these listings are cutting their price. That's not surprising. A third of every listing in Nashville basically is cutting their price. But the asset itself, Airbnbs are getting completely repriced. And here's what I mean. In 2023, the median sold price for non-owner occupied STRs was $910,000. Today it's $650,000. But it's not just the median sold price, it's the median sold price per foot. It went from $592 in 2024 all the way down to $434 in 2026. This is a massive drop. Any way you cut it, we're talking not just double digit, we're talking high double digit losses. If we look at resales, okay, we go back to 2019 and we just monitor which ones sold at gains and which ones sold at losses. What we see is that basically no Airbnb lost money all the way through 2022. But starting in 2022, we started to see losses, and now they are piling up, where almost a third, 1 in 3 resales of Airbnbs right now are sold at losses. I'm not talking about small losses. We're talking about huge losses. 1/3 of Airbnb sales this year are repeat sales are at losses. We have 186 active listings on the market, but I took all 992 unique tagged Airbnb listings since 2023. I said, what happened to those listings? 432 were delisted without any record of sale. Now, there are 339 that have sold since 2023. If you're trying to sell an existing Airbnb, you have a 1 in 3 chance of successfully selling. And if you successfully sell, there's a 1 in 3 chance that you sold at a loss. There is a strong K-shape in Nashville housing. Demand on the high end continues strong, even as the NASDAQ sold off 5% on Friday. If that continues, I would expect the $2 million and the $1 million sales to really slow down going into the fall. Median price is at an all-time high. Median is measuring the K-shaped demand as the under $1 million demand basically stumbles along, it struggles. And the K-shape, the asset holders have no problem buying in this market, and they are buying at a higher, faster, quicker pace than they have been in years. With that, I hope you all have a great rest of the day. I hope this was helpful. I hope you learned a little bit about the Airbnb market. That was the goal, and I will see you next Saturday. Thanks a lot.